Now, if you want to see the largest diversity of history for sale in North America, we're about to talk some history, but Chase, you live with history every day at the Relic Room.
Man, yes. I'm surrounded by it. I'm obsessed with it. It's there. And that not just antiques and stuff like that, but we've got artifacts, fossils, and minerals from every period of time from all over the world.
Yeah, we've talked about the fact, meteorites, crystals, dinosaur eggs, fossils of other types as well, other types of relics too. And we tend to talk about that. The further back seems, it's that much more. But you've also got military type history stuff too.
Vietnam, World War II, Span Am, all that good stuff. But if you dig history, just come down to the shop and see us, because I promise you we have something for you. And for your suffering through this, listening to me ramble on about history, if you say that you heard us on the radio, we'll give you a free fossil or mineral.
You can find the Relic Room as well, in case you don't know, inside Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and you know where that is. So
right.
That's where you'll find Chase and the Relic Room. So check it out.
Yeah.
Just go downstairs and keep looking for the awesome place, and when you hit awesome, that's when you've got me. So right there with all the artifacts.
Yeah, at Smoky Mountain Knife Works, online, therelicroom.com. What's in the history bag today, Chase?
So, we're going to be talking about Steve's favorite subject.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yes. Chasing the redcoats out.
That's right, the Revolutionary War in Tennessee. But, but here's the thing is that we actually, the biggest battle that the people in East Tennessee fought in, was Battle of Kings Mountain. There weren't any uniformed redcoats involved in that battle. It was, the battle in the South during the war was really more of a civil war. It was the Tories who were the pro-British, fighting against, the frontiersmen and the pro-American forces, separation forces. So, in a real quick recap, what we've got going on is in East Tennessee, the people came over, they settled, they were without government, they started their own government. They made treaties with the Cherokees. The Cherokees kind of, half of them were for, half of them were against. There was a split within the Cherokee Nation. But then all of a sudden you get the Revolutionary War actually kicking off in the 1770s.
Right.
So what happened was the Cherokees went to their British allies, which they've been since the beginning of time, and said, look, these guys are squatting. Can you please help us? And the British were like, yes, we can help you. Here's arms. Here's ammunition. Go fight them. You've got our approval to fight against, these people that
run them out of there.
That's right. Run them out of there. So the Revolutionary War starts out, and, the Revolution, it was a real stalemate for a long time. We really weren't winning anything. The Revolutionary War was a war of attrition that was going on. Washington was, doing all that he can just to avoid major engagements.
Right.
So the war was, was at a stalemate up north. So the British strategy was to move the war down south, because believe it or not, most Southerners at this time were pro-British. It was the frontiersmen that were where we are that was really the pro-American forces. So the British thought that this would be easy pickings, just go down, attack it, take over and then move north. So they invade Charleston, take Charleston, and Cornwallis is moving his armies up, in conquering, the South Carolina, Georgia Falls really easy, into North Carolina, and then by the winter of 1780, he's in North Carolina. The plan is to make his way up north through Virginia to close off Washington's retreat and to wipe out this whole American uprising all in the start. So what happens is Cornwallis breaks his army into three different groups, one in the middle, one right, one left. Well, the one on the left is commanded by a guy by the name of Patrick Ferguson. And Ferguson's a really neat character. He was considered the best shot in the British Army. He tried to initiate, these innovations in the British Army, like the first breech-loading rifle called the Ferguson rifle was invented by him. He tried to introduce camouflage into the British Army, but that wasn't really taken very well.
Like their red coats.
Well, first of all, Ferguson is a Scottish name, so that's all that you need to know. Right there.
Just waiting for that.
Right there. Sorry, go ahead, Chase.
No. That's okay. That's okay. So what Ferguson is in charge of, he's in charge of the Tory militia. All right, this is the group of pro-British Americans. That army is commanded by Ferguson. So he's making his way up along the mountains. Well, he encounters, in small skirmishes, some of these guys from over the mountains, which literally this is like another world compared to where the war is fighting on the other. There's a mountain range between it,
exactly.
So, but these guys are going over and encountering Ferguson. So Ferguson gets tired of it, and he looks at him and says, "Look, if you don't stay out of this war, I will march this army over your mountain, over these mountains, hang your leaders, and lay waste to your country with fire and sword. Now, you don't threaten people like that that's been at a war, already fighting the Cherokees for, 4 or 5 years.
Right.
So these are people that have hacked. You just don't say this stuff. So what happened is when the threat was heard, they went out a call to all men, if you want to come and fight this guy, here's what he said. He's threatening our livelihood. You show up and we'll go hunt him down. And that's what they did.
And we're talking about a time when people were getting news by, little pamphlets that would be printed, word of mouth, maybe something stuck on a tree.
Yeah, this was all word of mouth. And that's how quickly the word of mouth spread. And the word was meet at Sycamore Shoals near present-day Elizabethton.
Okay.
And we'll go. Well, over 800 people showed up. Now, they are not going to be given guns. They're not going to be given ammunitions. They're not going to be given horses. They're not going to be given food. The only thing that they're going to be given is the opportunity to go hunt this army down and annihilate it. And that's exactly what they do. They go over the mountains, or they're walking over the Appalachian mountain range, the southern highlands of the Appalachian Mountains. They're walking over to hunt this guy down. So Ferguson hears that there's coming, and he finds a defensive position. He gets up on top of this mountain, and he says, not only God himself can get me off this mountain. So that's mistake number one is don't get on a mountain to fight mountain men. So they go up and they surround him. The battle ensues. Now, keep in mind, this is all militia against militia. There are no, there's only like one company of actually uniformed British redcoats involved. But what happens is Ferguson's army is completely annihilated, and this changed the war. So, because what happened is that Cornwallis just lost a third of his army in this battle. So, what Cornwallis, who had gained all this ground in the beginning of his invasion of the South, had to turn around and go all the way back to Charleston for safety for the winter.
To regroup.
And what that allowed is that took the British Army out of the field in the South. And that allowed the Southern Continental Army, who Cornwallis annihilated at the Battle of Camden, so there was no Southern Continental Army.
Right.
But what that did is that gave Washington a chance to send Nathaniel Greene down to re-raise the Southern Continental Army. And they re-raised this Continental Army. And so when Cornwallis came out in 1781, in the spring, he had an army there to face him. And he did. Greene, made Cornwallis chase him all the way to Yorktown, and we know what happened at Yorktown. So, but all of this started because of the Battle of Kings Mountain. Jefferson himself even said that the long road to Yorktown began at Kings Mountain. It was the single most important engagement, in my opinion, to turning the tide of the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
But it's one that you don't really hear about. And it was one that was fought with our ancestors, the people, the men and women who fought here.
And from how far from where we're sitting are we talking about to get to where the Battle of Kings Mountain took place?
It's over 100 miles.
Okay.
It's a long. It's not like going to Pigeon Forge.
And
this is.
And thinking about walking from Elizabethton on foot to get to the place.
Yeah, they went up over Roan Mountain was the gap that they went over, and then they still make that walk every year. I've got friends that do that. They make that walk and they hit school groups and stuff like that along the way.
Great.
And they rewalked an entire path from Sycamore Shoals to Kings Mountain, which is pretty cool. Wow.
If you want to learn something about the history of this local area and history in general, check out Chasing History on YouTube with Chase Pipes, or go by and visit the Relic Room. You can see lots of military history right over there. Inside Smoky Mountain Knife Works, of course, the world's largest knife show place on Highway 66 in Sevierville. TheRelicRoom.com on the World Wide Web, or check it out on Chasing History on YouTube.
One quick question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I'm curious. When that battle happened, was it already called Kings Mountain? And if so, do you know why?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to look that one up.
Right, yeah.
I think it was called Kings Mountain because it was the only high spot in this area.
Right.
So this is the Kings Mountain.
Right, right.
But I'm not sure. I'll find out.
Okay, all right.
And if the information from Jefferson is accurate, if he indeed said that it happened, partially because of Kings Mountain, if he used the name of the mountain, it would suggest it was maybe named before.
Yeah,
if that's a direct quote, though.
I think it would be named before. I'm pretty sure that was the name of the mountain already.
Yeah, and then that would imply that maybe it was named by the British.
Might have been.
No American's going to call something a king or a queen, are they?
Well, but and a lot of the those that came over, they sent a lot of surveyors around and would give names. And we've heard about how Clingman's Dome and Mount Lacombe got their names. So you could understand how maybe a British surveyor might have named something King.
Yeah, my assumption would be because it was the highest point in the area, they were like, yes, it's the King's Mountain, of course, because it is the highest point in all the land.
That's where he would have put his castle.
Yes, yeah, I mean, that would be my assumption.
Or it might have been surveyed by a guy called Nigel King.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
I will find out for you, sir.
Thank you.
I will find out.
Chase, great stuff as always.
Hey, thanks, guys. Remember, guys, history rocks. Woohoo!
It does indeed. Chase Pipes from the Relic Room online, therelicroom.com.